The title was true. A human sniper had protected an alien girl for 10 years, and she had never once known he existed. The first sign of his presence appeared on a quiet morning when a single beam of light cut through the forest canopy and struck a threat she never saw. She continued walking, unaware that her life had balanced on the width of a heartbeat. He watched from a concealed ridge, steady and silent, as he always had been. His duty wasn't glory or recognition, it was distance, patience, and precision. The girl grew, traveled, argued with tutors, laughed with friends, all under the invisible shelter of a man who rarely blinked during daylight hours. No one had asked him to protect her for a decade. No one even remembered assigning him. But the dangers had never stopped, and neither had he. Something unseen was approaching again, and this time, it felt different. The observation chamber of the Valari Academy was designed to inspire confidence. Soft blue walls, curved glass panels, and a gentle hum from the environmental stabilizers. It overlooked the academy grounds where young elites trained in diplomacy, science, and defensive arts. To most species, it felt safe. To Commander Lethar, it felt excessively ornamental. The Valari official adjusted his ceremonial sash, his movements precise and dignified. His species valued elegance, logic, and predictable order. His gaze swept across the courtyard below, where students moved in structured patterns. Everything was catalogued, monitored, and arranged. Everything except the threat he'd been briefed about. Behind him, nearly invisible in the reflection, stood the human assigned to the academy years earlier, a quiet figure who blended into corners with practiced ease. Sergeant Cole Winters carried no insignia today, only a neutral expression and the stillness of someone accustomed to watching life from the edges. Lethar regarded the human through narrowed eyes. "Your presence remains unnecessary," he said. Cole didn't argue. He simply observed the grounds, hands resting calmly behind his back, as if waiting for something only he could sense. The courtyard lights flickered once, barely noticeable. Lethar dismissed it. Cole didn't. He shifted his stance by an inch, small enough to avoid drawing attention, large enough to indicate a change in alertness. Somewhere below, the girl he had protected for a decade laughed with her classmates, unaware that her safety rested on the quiet man standing in the shadows above. And unaware that the danger she faced was finally evolving. Commander Lethar folded his arms, his composure settling into something almost ceremonial. "Your species still fascinates me," he said, in the tone of someone examining an unusual insect. "So fragile, and yet convinced you belong in protective roles." Cole didn't respond. He tracked the courtyard below, gaze steady. Lethar continued, encouraged by silence. "Valari reflex patterns exceed yours by a factor of 3. Our ocular range covers ultraviolet bands. And statistically, humans underperform in precision environments requiring extended focus." He paused, offering a faint smile. "This academy houses the most gifted minds of our sector. Your presence creates unnecessary clutter." Across the room, a pair of visiting scholars exchanged amused glances. One tapped data on a handheld screen, confirming something with a soft chime. The other whispered, "Humans fatigue easily. Their cardiovascular systems struggle at altitude." Cole remained motionless. Lethar clasped his hands behind him. "Precision, patience, emotional detachment, these are qualities cultivated through centuries of Valari discipline. Humans evolved through instinctive reaction, not long-term clarity." A quiet hum escaped one of the scholars, laughter for their species. Another added, "They require sleep cycles far more often. They are hardly suited for 10-year assignments." Lethar nodded approvingly. "Exactly. Their biology limits them. Their senses restrict them. And their emotional architecture." He exhaled, a soft sigh of superiority. "It makes them impulsive." Still, Cole said nothing. He simply watched the academy grounds, expression unchanged, heartbeat steady, hands resting loosely at his sides. Not defensive. Not offended. Just aware. Somewhere in the courtyard, the girl paused mid-step and looked toward the building, sensing a shift she couldn't explain. Cole's posture didn't change. But his eyes had already found the source of Lether's misplaced confidence, and the subtle movement that suggested danger had arrived sooner than expected. Cole finally spoke, not to confront Lether's speech, but to adjust one detail with quiet precision. "How often?" he asked, eyes still on the courtyard. "Do your security scans fail to detect organic movement outside the calibrated range?" Ledhar blinked, caught off guard. "Fail? Our systems maintain a 99.9 success rate." Cole nodded slightly. "That 0.1 matters. How large is it?" The room shifted. One of the scholars stopped scrolling. Another angled their screen toward Ledhar, uncertainty flickering across crystalline features. Ledhar cleared his throat. "Margin of error exists in all systems. It is irrelevant here." Cole continued softly. "When was the last recalibration?" The scholars exchanged looks, this time not amused. "4 cycles ago," one admitted. "Scheduled maintenance was delayed." Cole didn't comment. He simply asked, "And foliage density on the northern ridge?" Ledhar frowned. "Why reference that? The ridge falls outside standard threat patterns. Things hiding there don't care about patterns." The scientist-type scholar rotated their display, tapping quickly. "He's right," they murmured. "The ridge hasn't been scanned thoroughly since the seasonal shift. Thermal signatures may distort." Lether's membrane flushed with discomfort. "Irrelevant. No threat has approached in months." Cole's tone stayed neutral. "You're certain?" A longer pause followed. The scholar inhaled. "Commander, the human is pointing out variables we overlooked." Lether's jaw tightened. "Humans rely on instinct. We rely on data." Cole's reply was quiet. "Instinct is usually a reaction to data others miss." For the first time, Ledhar turned fully toward him. The imbalance had shifted. Something outside the academy walls moved again, subtle, precise, and intentional. Cole had noticed. And now, others were beginning to see the gaps in their certainty. Ledhar, eager to recover authority, moved toward the training overlook. "Very well," he said. "If you insist on questioning our preparedness, we will demonstrate." He activated the blinds, revealing a live simulation chamber below, an open-terrain hologram with shifting cover, environmental fog, and moving decoys. It was a standard Valari assessment of threat detection, used by elite guards and diplomatic escorts. A young Valari guard stood ready. Ledhar gestured with pride. "Observe. Our trainees identified distant threats with unmatched clarity." The simulation began. A hidden target flickered across the projection. The guard focused, narrowed his gaze, and pointed. "Far ridge, second marker." He was close enough for Ledhar to nod, satisfied. Next, a Charon observer tried. Their species relied on motion sensitivity. They detected 2 threats, but missed the third. A polite chime marked the error. A crystalline Quinn analyst followed. Their spectrovision located 3 decoys instantly, but misread heat distortion from another, resulting in 2 false positives. Ledhar turned toward Cole, arms folding. "Your turn, human." Cole sighed quietly, as if the request were merely routine. He stepped to the panel, hands loose at his sides. The simulation refreshed. Fog thickened. Distances stretched. Decoys hid behind bends. Cole didn't narrow his eyes. He didn't lean forward. He simply looked. Then he lifted one finger. "There." Ledhar frowned. "Impossible. Nothing is projected there." Cole tapped the zoom control. A faint outline, barely a shimmer, materialized. A decoy blending with terrain. The scholar stiffened. Cole pointed again. "And there, and there." Each time he marked a location, the hologram validated it with a sharp tone. 5 threats. All found. No hesitation. Ledhar swallowed. "That is unlikely." Cole ignored him, eyes drifting to a darker patch near the edge of the projection. "And that one," he added. The hologram flickered, no decoy was there. Ledhar exhaled triumphantly. A mistake. But then the simulation recalibrated, revealing a distorted, half-rendered threat pattern that shouldn't have been visible yet. The scholars stared. He identified it before the system finished generating. One whispered. Cole stepped back. Your program follows predictable placement logic. The pattern was incomplete, but the angle was wrong for fog drift. No pride. No boasting. Just facts. The room went silent. Because a moment later, an alert chimed, not from the simulation, but from the Academy's real perimeter sensors. A threat pattern on the northern ridge had just flickered into existence. The same angle Cole had identified. When you're ready for the perimeter alert continued pulsing, soft but insistent. Scholars crowded the console, checking readings with mounting confusion. Lethar moved from screen to screen, irritation dissolving into unease. Cole waited. Finally, one of the crystalline Quinn analysts spoke first. The signal is faint, but real. Something is on the ridge. Movement patterns, irregular. A Feltic biologist tilted their fronds. How did the humans sense it before our scanners? Lethar, unwilling to concede, folded his arms. Coincidence, most likely. Cole shook his head. Not coincidence. Just pattern recognition. A pause followed. The kind of pause that meant a room was trying very hard to understand something uncomfortable. The Quinn leaned closer. Explain. What training produces this? Cole considered his answer. It's not training. Not formal, anyway. The biologist blinked. Then what is it? Life, Cole said simply. The room froze. Lethar scoffed. Life? That is not an answer. Cole's voice stayed level. Where I grew up, you learned to notice small changes, footprints, broken branches, shadows that don't match the sun. Not professionally. Just to avoid trouble. The Quinn processed this slowly. This was recreational? Cole nodded once. Children play outside. We learn to read terrain without thinking about it. The biologist stiffened. Your children track movement? Sometimes, Cole admitted. Or they learn the hard way when they miss a detail. A Valari scholar whispered, horrified. Your juveniles endure threat environments? Not intentionally, Cole said. But nature doesn't care about intentions. The room absorbed that. He continued, tone calm. Hunting, camping, backcountry travel, people do it for fun. Some learn to navigate forests, deserts, mountains. You start noticing sound changes. Silence patterns. Weather shifts. It becomes instinct. Lethar blinked slowly. This is common? Very. The Quinn's facets brightened. Commander, humans engage in environmental threat analysis as recreation. The biologist added quietly. Their sensory training begins in childhood. Unstructured. Unregulated. And constant. Cole shrugged. Not training. Just living on a planet that tries to break you if you don't pay attention. Lethar stared at him. That is grotesque. Cole didn't argue. It's normal where I'm from. More silence. Then the biologist whispered the line everyone else was thinking. You accidentally trained to detect ambushes. Cole lifted one shoulder. It happens. Every alien in the room stared at him with a new mixture of awe and fear, because they finally understood. Humans weren't built for war. They were built by a world that didn't believe in safety. And now, something outside the Academy matched the same patterns Cole had spent a lifetime learning to recognize. If you're ready for the real crisis, where the sniper becomes terrifyingly competent. 2 months passed with deceptive calm. The Academy's routines resumed their predictable rhythm, morning lessons in diplomacy, afternoon training in structured exercises, evening lanterns glowing across manicured courtyards. Students laughed, argued, complained about assignments. The young alien girl, Lyra, moved through her days unaware of the silent orbit of protection that trailed her wherever she walked. Cole remained a shadow on the periphery, never in the way, never drawing attention, always watching. Lethar insisted the ridge alert had been a glitch. Scanners had been recalibrated. Patrols increased. Confidence returned. Until the night the ridge erupted in sound. It began with a tremor, light enough for Lehar to mistake it for weather. Then the academy lights flickered. Long-range sensors chimed a warning that registered too slowly for anyone in the room to process. Cole had already moved. He crossed the chamber with quiet urgency and was down the stairwell before Lehar even inhaled to issue an order. The calm lines erupted in overlapping voices, guards reporting movement, perimeter units stumbling over readings, scholars trying to interpret data faster than it arrived. The threat wasn't theoretical anymore. Outside, the forest shimmered with unnatural motion, branches bending under shapes that didn't belong. Something large, several somethings, moved with unnerving coordination. Lyra stood near the central walkway, startled as guards rushed past her. A distant branch snapped. Cole reached her before the sound finished echoing. "Walk with me," he said softly. She blinked. "What's happening?" "Walk." His tone wasn't harsh. It wasn't loud. It simply left no space for question. Alarms wailed. Spotlights flared across the grounds. Valari security forces scrambled into position, structured, orderly, well-trained, but overwhelmed by confusion. Something darted between the trees, too fast for most eyes to track. Lehar shouted commands. Guards fired warning bursts into the dark, hoping to deter whatever lurked beneath the canopy. One burst hit nothing. The second hit something that didn't stop. Lyra froze. Cole lifted her gently by the shoulder, positioning her behind a stone column. "Stay low." The courtyard erupted as academy defenses activated, shield plates rising, barriers snapping into place, but the creatures moved around them with unnatural precision. One scaled the courtyard wall, claws sparking against stone as it pulled itself upward. A young guard saw it and panicked, firing too early. The bolt went wide. Cole stepped past him, steady and silent. He didn't carry a rifle. He didn't need one. He picked up the guard's drop-pulse carbine with a single motion, checked the charge by touch, pivoted, and fired once. The creature collapsed instantly. The guards stared at him. "How did you?" Cole had already turned. "Where's the girl's secondary escort?" "And no escort was assigned," the guard stammered. Cole exhaled through his nose, quiet frustration, nothing more. Another creature lunged from the opposite flank. Cole dropped low. Shifted weight. Fired upside down. Hit the creature between its eyes. He didn't celebrate the shot. He didn't acknowledge it. He simply said, "Move." Lyra followed him, trembling. "What are they?" she whispered. "Hunters," Cole replied. "Not local." He didn't explain how he knew. He didn't have to. Two more shapes burst onto the courtyard walkway. Valari guards reacted with disciplined formation, efficient, polished, even admirable, but they fired where the targets had been, not where they would be. Cole moved differently. He watched breath patterns. He tracked weight distribution. He predicted intention. Every shot he fired landed before the creature completed its motion. Guards began turning to follow his lead without realizing they'd done it. Lehar arrived breathless. "Human, how are you identifying their paths?" "They're barely visible." Cole pointed to the tree line. "There are more." "How many?" "Enough." That answer, spoken so calmly, made every alien present hesitate. A heavy thud shook the ground, something far larger approaching. Lehar swallowed. "Why are they here?" Cole didn't look away from the trees. "They weren't after the academy." Lyra's breath caught. "Me?" "Stay behind me," he said gently. The ridge rustled with coordinated intent. The largest creature stepped into the lantern light, towering, armored, intelligent. Cole raised the pulse carbine, but his voice stayed steady. "Lehar, get the others inside." "But humans..." Cole cut him off. "Inside." The commander obeyed, not out of hierarchy, but because something in Cole's tone made disobedience feel impossible. The girl clung to the stone column, frightened but watching him. The creature lunged. Cole exhaled. Shifted his stance. and the world slowed around him. He fired once to destabilize its footing, twice to its shoulder joint, a third time into the exposed soft plate beneath its jaw. 3 shots. 3 movements. One continuous line of quiet precision. The creature crashed into the courtyard stone and didn't rise. Cole lowered the rifle as naturally as if setting down a pen. Lyra stared at him, wide-eyed. He didn't meet her gaze. Instead, he listened to the forest again, because danger had a rhythm, and the silence now carried a different weight. The threat was over. For now. And every alien present understood something they had never considered before. For 10 years, this human hadn't been stationed here. He had been holding the line alone. The courtyard settled into an uneasy quiet, broken only by the hum of emergency shields powering down. Guards stood frozen in place, staring at the fallen creatures as if waiting for them to rise again. Lantern light flickered across shattered stone, splintered railings, and the dark patches where Cole's shots had landed with unerring precision. Lethar arrived last, his ceremonial sash torn from running, his composure cracked in a way no Valari instructor liked others to see. His eyes moved from the bodies, to the frightened students, to the calm humans standing among them. Cole lowered the pulse carbine with a slow, almost apologetic motion. "Clear," he said quietly. The guard beside him exhaled as if he'd been holding his breath for minutes. Lethar approached with stiff steps. "Sergeant, what you did was not possible. Valari tactical teams trained for years and still struggled to predict movement that erratic." Cole checked the weapon's charge, set it safely aside, and shrugged. "Wasn't prediction. Just habit." "Habit?" Lethar repeated, as though tasting the word. "Back home, when movement stops feeling random, you learn something's about to go wrong." The Quinn analyst drifted forward, crystalline facets shimmering with dawning comprehension. "Your earlier demonstration, the decoy you identified before the simulation rendered it, was the same skill?" Cole nodded. "And you maintained a 10-year watch over this girl," the biologist added softly. "Using the same instinctive awareness?" "Pretty much." The courtyard filled with a silence that wasn't fear anymore. It was respect, quiet, heavy, earned. Lyra stood closest, hands trembling but eyes steady. "You were watching over me all this time?" "Not watching," Cole corrected gently. "Just making sure you got where you were going." Lethar struggled for words. His pride, his species' confidence, the long-held belief in Valari's superiority, all of it wavered under the weight of what he'd seen. "You acted before any of us understood what was happening. You protected her without command, without recognition, without certainty of survival." Cole's expression remained mild. "That's the job." Lethar inhaled slowly. "Then our manuals are wrong." He glanced at the gathered guards and scholars. "Our assumptions are wrong." His gaze returned to Cole. "And our understanding of humans is profoundly lacking." Cole didn't react with satisfaction. He simply said, "Everyone was safe. That's what matters." Lethar straightened, a gesture of acknowledgement rare for his species. "Sergeant Winters, will you assist us in rewriting our threat assessment protocols? Your methods clearly exceed ours." Cole rubbed the back of his neck as if embarrassed by the attention. "They're not methods. Just lessons learned the long way." "Then teach us," the Quinn insisted. Lethar nodded. "Your instincts saved lives today. We must understand them if we hope to prevent further failures." Cole looked toward the treeline again, ever watchful, even now, then returned his focus to the commander. "I can help you start," he said simply. A ripple of relief moved through the courtyard. For the first time, the aliens understood the truth. They had not been protecting the girl. The last of the academy lights stabilized, casting an even glow across the courtyard where guards gathered debris and scholars whispered over recalibrated readings. Lyra stood a short distance away, still processing the truths she'd never imagined. 10 years of safety owed to a man she hadn't known was there. Cole watched the treeline a moment longer, ensuring nothing else moved. Only when he was certain did he step back, shoulders easing into their familiar quiet. Lethar approached him with a steadiness that hadn't existed earlier. Sergeant Winters. I misjudged your species. And your role here. He hesitated, the admission heavier than any wound. I assumed your presence was ceremonial. A formality. Cole adjusted the sling on the pulse carbine, eyes calm. Most people do. Lethar bowed his head, a rare, sincere gesture. You protected her better than any system we built. Cole offered a faint smile, almost apologetic. She never needed to see me, he said. Just needed to stay alive. He turned toward the path leading out of the courtyard. Before he stepped away, he left Lethar with a final, soft truth. Humans don't guard from the spotlight. We guard from the places no one thinks to look. And with that, he vanished into the shadows again, exactly where he had always been.